Hey guys, thanks so much for watching Common Sense Cooking. I'm James. I hope you're having a wonderful day. So today we're going to talk about spices, and I'm going to show you how to make 4 different spice blends. And basically this is just going to be helpful if you have some good cooking spices on hand. Then you can start adjusting what you're already cooking, and you can start taking on some cooking principles one by one instead of just trying to get everything right all together. I feel like, especially those who are of my generation, we don't have a whole lot of patience in learning things, and myself included. We expect things that are going to go pretty easily, and then when they get it hard, sometimes we push through. And I'm not putting anyone down, but when we don't feel like it's necessary, and I think a lot of times cooking doesn't seem all that necessary, it's easy to just order takeout, buy pre-packaged foods, which are over time is going to be a lot more expensive. But also you're just not going to learn some of those principles and a very simple skill. But we're not learning those because we just kind of put it off to go in search of something else. So, but I think it's important. I think it's good to learn how to cook, especially if you're Orthodox and you're having to cook for lots of different seasons. It's not always very easy to find things that don't have oil in them at the market, pre-packaged things. So you have to make your own versions of things. So if you have some good seasonings on hand, a good seasoning can cover a multitude of transgressions when it comes to cooking. You can, if you don't get the texture right, it matters, and you'll get it better the next time. But if you have a good seasoning, it'll still taste good. So I'm going to teach you how to make Garam Masala. If you want to make spiced coffee, you can use it for that. It's an Indian seasoning, spice blend, I guess is the better term. And it can really pep up a lot of different things. And then Cajun seasoning, which interestingly enough, one of my favorite combinations of seasoning is Garam Masala and Cajun seasoning. And I need to say spice blend, not seasoning, and I'll get to that in a moment. Then the third one is Berbere, which is an Ethiopian spice blend. And then we're gonna make Za'atar, which is a Middle Eastern spice blend. So you get a good range if you just make these 4 spice blends. Now I call them spice blends or cooking spices because they don't have salt in them. If you put salt in something, it's great for adding to a dish after it's already cooked. But if you're wanting to use this in cooking, you're going to be salting separately, especially, and you may not know this, but with meats like chicken or pork belly or something like that, if you're going to cook a meat, it's really best to completely cover that in salt and let it sit overnight. The salt will seep into the meat and it will help regulate the moisture when it's cooking, so you're going to get a much more moist and tender meat. It makes a huge difference if you haven't tried it. I recommend it. Samin Nosrat, she wrote the book Salt, Fat, Acid, and Heat, and she explains it better than anyone else that I've come across. So I recommend looking that up. Salt is a multi-step thing in cooking, and so it's best just to make up some cooking spices separately so that you can use them without salt. Yeah, we'll get more into some of the details as we go. Let's start with the Garam Masala. Okay, so my objective when I was putting together the spice blends was to kind of come up with a middle ground between the easiest recipe and the most authentic. So I scored through several different spice blends, some of the ones that I use and then some of the ones that I don't normally use, just so I could get a bigger picture. And some of these spice blends can have certain things that are very difficult to find. You may even have a hard time finding some of the things that are in here. But I always tend to lean towards the most authentic, the most original. But that's just not going to work for everyone if we're trying to find a middle ground to help people learn how to cook and it not be a huge burden. Then I thought the middle ground would be best. Something that has all the basic ingredients plus some that tilt a little bit more towards the more authentic recipes. Because I'm sure, if you go to any of these countries where these recipes come from, everyone, from what I hear, everyone has their own version, everyone has their own mixture. So this is just a starting point for you to get going. And I always change it, I always, experiment with it. So if you're into that, if you're one of those people, then, do that for sure. Figure out what your favorite blend is. If you're not, if you just need to have something in the pantry so that you can go for it and you don't want to think about it, then I think this is a good middle ground. Also, to put together a spice blend, it's really more about ratios than any particular size spoon. So when I write out my recipes, I figure out what is the most common number in the list of ingredients. Like, are there a lot of teaspoons of something? Are there a lot of tablespoons? And I just take the most common group of numbers and I make that my base number, and I make that 1. And then everything else is in relationship to that. You'll see what I'm talking about in a moment. But so I'm going to use a teaspoon. A teaspoon is going to count for the number 1 in this recipe, just because I don't need a lot of these. I already have most of these. But if you wanted to make a bigger batch, then you just make your teaspoon a tablespoon, and you follow the same numbers, but when it says 1, you use a tablespoon instead of a teaspoon. If it says half, you use half a tablespoon instead of a teaspoon. I think you get the idea. Alright, so let's go ahead and make the garam masala real quick. You want 1 part cardamom, 1 part cinnamon, 1 part cloves, and this is a good example. If you have some ground spices and some whole spices like this clove, for the whole spices, just do a heaping portion of it, because it'll just account for the air. Spices, it's not a science, it's not baking, so it's fine if the ratios are a little bit off. This is just a starting point, but if you want to get closer, then the whole cloves or the whole peppercorns or whatever it is, just do a little bit extra so it accounts for the space. So we have 1 part cardamom, 1 part cinnamon, 1 part clove so far. Then you have 2 parts coriander, 1 part pepper, about half a part star of anise, and 3 parts cumin. Alright, so that's what they look like all together. Now I have a mixture of whole seasonings and then the ground ones. So I have a stone grinder. I think that this is a really good tool to have in the kitchen. It just has a lot of uses. I use it for some grains and for seasonings, especially seasonings, because I'm trying to go more towards some of the whole seasonings. Now, these are really good when you toast them. So you might want to play around with whether you prefer to toast them before you grind them. I tend to, just for time's sake, I'll go ahead and grind them all, and then before I cook anything with them, I'll toast them or sometimes even fry them, and that works fine for me. So, but the flavors of these spices definitely come out a lot more when you toast them. So when I make spiced coffee, I actually don't always toast them, even though it does make a difference, just for time's sake. Sometimes I just want a little bit of garam masala in my coffee for the flavor. But if I'm cooking, I almost always do. So I'll finish this off camera, and then we'll come back and start on the Cajun seasoning. Alright, so for the Cajun seasoning, I'm still going to use the teaspoon, but once again, whatever you use, even if you use a little bottle cap, as long as you know 1 bottle cap is the base, and then half, 3, 2, all of those have to do with the bottle cap. You can use whatever you want. 1 part cayenne. If you like your Cajun seasoning a little bit spicier, then you might use more. 2 parts garlic. 1 part onion. 1 part oregano. Half a part thyme. And 3 parts paprika. So paprika, I believe at least most of the time, is made from dehydrated and ground bell peppers. And strangely enough, I didn't know that until very recently, but it always has a really, especially if you get smoked paprika, it has a really nice flavor, but it's not that spicy. But it does add some good flavor to it. So that's why I say, if you want it to be spicier, you probably want to put more cayenne, not more paprika in it, just so you know. And then you want 2 parts pepper. And if you're able to, do half of that black pepper and half white pepper. So just remember 2 parts pepper, but if you're able to, white pepper does not taste the same as black pepper. I would still say use 2 parts black pepper if that's all you have. but white pepper does have a more interesting flavor to it. It's also more expensive. You know, not all of the Cajun seasoning recipes have it. But if you're able to, go ahead and get some white pepper to put in this mixture. All right. So here are those ingredients up close. All right, so now I'm gonna show you how to make Za'atar, the Middle Eastern spice blend. This one is by far the easiest. It has the fewest ingredients and they all are equal parts. So you want 1 part coriander, 1 part cumin, 1 part sesame seed. Now if you don't plan on toasting these spices all together, at least toast the sesame seed. I will, after I blend all this, I will toast it myself, and I like to toast all of them, but at least the sesame seeds need to be toasted. All right, and then 1 part thyme. An optional addition is a pinch of chili powder, which of course I want, but it's completely optional if you just want a little bit of a spice. Another very essential ingredient in this mixture is sumac. And apparently there are no stores around me that sell sumac. I could order it online, but it wouldn't have gotten here by the time I wanted to video this. So I almost just switched it over and just did a completely other spice blend, but I actually thought this would be a good lesson, because maybe you don't have sumac around you either. You know, you may really like this spice blend. It may be perfect for your palate, and it's a very easy one. It's delicious, but you may not have sumac around you, and you may not, you know, want to buy something online. It's always, and it's part of the learning process, I feel like, to, you know, if you're missing an ingredient, you can't seem to get your hands on it, it's very easy to figure out, okay, or to think about what are the essential qualities of that thing. So what does sumac add to this mix? Well, it adds sourness. It has a very citrusy flavor to it, and it's a little bit earthy too, which is a very strange combination to have earthy and citrusy. But for the most part, it adds an element of citrus and some sourness to it. So my gut told me, well, if I don't have sumac, then I'll just grate some lemon peel, and then, you know, squeeze a little bit of lemon whenever I cook with this. I'll just add that into the mix. Now, because lemon peel, I don't have any dehydrated lemon peel or ground lemon peel or anything like that, I'm not going to add it to this mixture, but I know whenever I use this, I'm just going to grind a little bit of lemon peel, because we have lemons. That's not a problem. And I looked it up just to make sure, you know, what's the best substitute, and sure enough, everyone said lemon peel and a little bit of lemon is a great substitute for sumac. So I just thought I would put that out there as an example. Just don't get too, I guess, uptight when it comes to cooking that you have to do it a certain way. The reason those kinds of things can stress us out is because of lack of knowledge. But I guess what I'm trying to tell you is, if you have that problem, if you have to follow the recipe exactly, otherwise you're just completely lost. Maybe try to start thinking about, well, if you don't have something and you need to cook the recipe, you know, maybe do a search engine, you know, some kind of search on it, figure out, well, what is it adding to the balance, and then it's very easy then to try to find something that maybe you do have around that can fill in that gap. If you have sumac, absolutely add that in. It's just an equal part with all the rest of them. But if you don't, just, you know, grate a little bit of lemon peel in and you'll be good. There is Za'atar. Alright, so now we're going to make an Ethiopian spice blend called Berbere. This is by far my favorite of the spice blends, but it's pretty spicy. And now that once you see kind of the list of ingredients, if you think it's too spicy, you'll know what to pull out. It'll be very clear what the majority of this is. This is where the ratio thing gets a little bit tricky. I stuck with it. Basically, Berbere is almost just ultimately a chili powder with some extra spices added in. And so the amount of chili and paprika is significantly more than everything else. So we're gonna start with that. So you want 17 parts chili powder, which If the teaspoon is my base, then that's about 1/3 of a cup. And then you want 12 parts of paprika, which is probably about 1/4 of a cup. I didn't look it up, and I'm just using the same third cup and just keeping it a little bit less. But I mean, you're gonna get in the ballpark. All right, so this is the base, this chili paprika mixture. And now we're just going to be, adding in some little extras for all the flavor that goes along with the heat. So now back to the teaspoon. Well, 3 parts cayenne, 1 part cardamom, 1 part coriander, 1 part cumin, 1 part fenugreek, 1 part garlic, 1 part onion, 1 part ginger, 1/2 a part cloves, 1/2 a part cinnamon, 1/2 a part nutmeg, and 1/2 a part allspice. So as you can tell, as far as the spice blends go, this is by far the most complex and has the most ingredients, but as far as I'm concerned, it's also the most rewarding. I use this on everything. I love Berbere. So highly recommend this if you're willing to put in the effort once you make a batch. And I mean, it goes on everything. In my next video, I'm going to show you an example of how I would use this just to change up my normal breakfast. And we'll also add in one more element if you want to, take what you already cook and then make it a little bit more Ethiopian. You can use Berbere, and then I'll show you one other thing that you can do that you can add to most dishes that will give it an Ethiopian feel. So thanks so much, guys, for watching. I'm having a lot of fun with this. I do want to say, I mentioned that I actually already have all of these spice blends backed up. So in order to try to get some more people on the Discord chat group so we can all talk together, share recipes, talk about life, whatever. If you're interested in being part of the Discord chat group, just click the link in the description. You may want to download the app if you're interested, and just talk to us. But one of the incentives I'm going to give is the 4 people who join the Discord first and then tell me which of these spice blends you would like. I will bottle it and send it to you. I'll get all your information in the chat group. But if you're interested in that, join the Discord group. Comment on the different categories, and then let me know what kind of spice you would like me to send you, and I'll at least be able to send it to 4 different people. Please leave a comment, let me know what you think about the episode. The next few episodes, I'm actually going to go into how you use these seasonings just to spruce up things that you probably already make. Look forward to seeing you there. Okay, so I actually have one more thing. I realized on that last recipe, the Berbere, that every time it asked for coriander, I was putting in fenugreek. I realized that because I had put in coriander and then the recipe called for fenugreek, and I was looking around and realized it was the same bottle. So I actually tasted the spice blends, and they're great. It's one of those happy accidents that turns out to be just fine. So if I do send you the seasonings that I made, they will be a little bit off, but maybe that'll just encourage you to make it the correct way. Yeah, those kinds of things happen. And it's really nice when it turns out that it still tastes really good. It's obviously a different flavor, but we're working with what we've got. I like to be honest when I make mistakes like that. Just so you know that just because I'm trying to do this on a more public scale doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes. And when you make mistakes, I want you to realize, yeah, I mean, those of us who are trying to do this more often, maybe more publicly, I mean, we're making those mistakes too. I think that helps when you're trying to learn, and it's probably not that you're just terrible at it. It's, everybody does the same things for the most part. But yeah, thanks so much again. Oh yeah, please click like and subscribe. That really helps me out, especially just trying to get this off the ground. And if you want to make sure that you're notified for future videos, click the little bell icon. I want to hear from you in the chat, the comments. I'd love to hear from you on the Discord chat if you want to join that. It's completely free, and we're just gonna, talk down there as long as we get enough people to have a good conversation. I've already had one interest in the t-shirt idea, the Ask Your Priest, so I'm considering that. The only thing is I don't like the companies that do cheap t-shirts. I'm not really a fan of just being part of the noise and just adding cheap t-shirts. So I think if I were to do something like that, it would be once I had enough interest in it that I could go have these made and have a higher quality t-shirt that's actually going to last you a while and isn't just going to be a throwaway thing. I just think that's, you know, better stewardship of our resources and time. So if you are interested, definitely, you know, keep letting me know, and eventually if there's enough interest in some merchandise, I'm not just gonna try to throw out cheap stuff just to make money. I would actually like to put out some good quality stuff if I am going to. So the more feedback I get on that, the more likely it'll happen. Yeah, we'll just see how that goes. Thank you guys so much again. Go check out the website. See you on the next video.